In gaming of the late 2010s, God of War took the world by storm, again, rebranding itself as a sensitive, emotionally driven game bridging the gap between hack and slash and more art-focused games like Hellblade: Senua's Sacrifice. Welcome to ZeroDeaths. So let's explore 15 things you didn't know about the God of War franchise. Number 1. 14 separate releases. Okay, maybe we're starting off with a slight cheat, but there have in fact been 14 individual releases of the God of War franchise, with 4 being collections and 1 being a remaster. But even still, that means there have been 9 different installments of the franchise. Even the confusingly named God of War 3 was the 5th game in the series, and is now the 7th in the series chronology. Either way, it's certain that there's plenty of hacking, slashing, and moody mourning to look forward to if you're new to the franchise. Number 2. There was a second game released alongside God of War, the 2018 version. Okay, again, I'll be straight with you. Maybe calling this a game is a bit of a stretch when compared to the series reboot itself. But in the lead up to its 2018 release, Sony partnered with Facebook and released a play-by-web text-based game which could be enjoyed through Facebook Messenger. The short story here followed Atreus on his first adventure into the Norse wilds, perfectly introducing the new, more sentimental style behind the games. Number 3. You can read it too. Not only are there more games than you probably thought, but the God of War universe extends beyond the PlayStation itself, with a number of graphic novels and comic books being released by the studio themselves, Dark Horse Comics, and even DC Comics. This began back in 2010 with a 6-issue comic series, and has continued in smatterings until another limited series which released alongside the refreshing 2018 installment. Not only this, but there have also been a handful of God of War novels too, offering deeper insights into the stories, motivations, and mythical world that is so often obscured by all the blood and mayhem on screen. So if you're through with the 9 games, there's still plenty more to dive into. Number 4, and you can hopefully watch it. Not only can you play and read your way through the God of War world, but there have been a number of films made around the game. Unfortunately, the only ones to have emerged so far are 3 documentaries about the franchise and the game's creation. But way back in 2005, a film adaptation of the series was announced, supposedly in partnership with Universal Studios. Of course, 15 years on, without it ending up on our screens, leaves us a bit skeptical. But with the critical and commercial success of the last installment, rumors have surfaced again. So perhaps there is a cinematic version of Kratos on the horizon. Number 5. Kratos the Rock Johnson. We obviously don't want to be peddling rumors on this channel, but this one is far too good to miss. Speaking of these new rumors surrounding the film finally being made, one of the most exciting is that Dwayne The Rock Johnson and Jason Momoa have, allegedly, both been approached for the role. And I don't know about you, but envisioning either of these two in the role makes for 2 perfect, albeit different, incarnations of Kratos. And given the fact that video game movies have lost some of their stigma over the last few years, perhaps now is the perfect time to make that fabled God of War movie. Number 6. Kratos didn't begin in God of War. Our beloved bloodthirsty protagonist Kratos is in fact based on Kratos, a figure from works of ancient Greek mythology. Kratos, the child of Pallas and Styx, 2 gods of the underworld, was named so to reflect the words for strength and might. But it's important to say that the mythology in the God of War franchise isn't necessarily Greek canon, with our version of Kratos instead being the son of Zeus and despising the gods, while the mythological incarnation in fact enforces the heavenly throne. So maybe think twice before taking the lore presented within the game to heart. Number 7. Kratos originally had long hair and always carried a baby. We all know pale-faced Kratos' bald head being covered in vibrant red tattoos, but originally he was conceived to have long hair, which gives us a more Nordic vibe. Moreover, the baby he carried was of course important for the lore, but after Hideo Kojima's Death Stranding, we can't quite look at this model the same. There must be some kind of link there, right? Number 8. Gods don't need armor. Not only did Kratos initially sport long locks, but he began clad in heavy armor, which, of course, had to be removed to allow for his badass personality to shine through. The developers thought exactly this, removing his armor to make him look manlier, revealing his iconic tattoo-covered body. Number 9. maybe tattoos aren't permanent. Speaking of tattoos, Kratos' seem pretty unique. Not only are they bright red and cover a good portion of his body, but between a few of the games, they seem to shift and change. Did he go in for tattoo removal? We certainly can't imagine Kratos waiting in line for something like that. Either way, it's clear that in the first game, Kratos' centerpiece tattoo spans across his chest and onto his left side. But in the God of War 2, that tattoo had shifted down the left side of his chest, and by God of War 3, the tattoo did not cross over his chest at all. It's unclear whether this was intentional by the developers, as they didn't like the original placement, but to be honest, as he looked better and better with each incarnation, we can't blame them. Number 10. 2 versions of Kratos, 3 voices. Speaking of changes, we can almost certainly agree that there are 2 gaming incarnations of Kratos. The original bloodthirsting, slim, nimble, and arcadish original character, and the bulky, heavy, and enraged axe-wielding version from the 2018 release. But between these 2 versions, Kratos had actually had 3 voices. Initially being voiced by T.C. Carson, up to God of War 3, Anthony Del Rio providing the voice of young Kratos in Ascension, and Christopher Judge being the latest Norse-like incarnation of the tattooed madman. Funnily enough, when auditioning for the role, Christopher Judge even grew a goatee just to look like the character. Number 11. You can call Kratos. As we're on the topic of Kratos' voice, did you know you could call him? Yes, with your phone. At the very end of the HD remake of the original God of War, hidden behind a piece of destructible scenery, there are 2 secret messages, both being real-world phone numbers players could call. The first was a message from David Jaffe, the creator of God of War, congratulating you on finding the Easter egg, while the other was a pre-recorded message from Kratos himself, going further into the lore of the game. Of course, if you're interested, both of these can be found on YouTube. Number 12. Kratos made it to The Simpsons. Another oddball classic from the late 2000s was The Simpsons game, which let you take control of the family. Kratos was featured in a billboard within a level of the game under the spoof title God of War, while he also appeared in an episode of the beloved series where the game Guts of War 2: Entrails of Intestinox is revealed to the Springfield public, and Bart manages to beat the game faster than the developer even thought was possible. Kratos has also featured in Mortal Kombat, PlayStation All-Stars Battle Royale, and Mod Nation Racers. Number 13. Kratos is the biggest badass. Of course, by this point we all know this, but it's actually official. At the 2010 Spike Video Game Awards, Kratos was awarded the coveted Biggest Badass Award, which he most certainly deserved. Sadly, the award was never provided to any other character in the 10 years since, but if we had to choose one badass, Kratos is certainly on the list. Number 14. Too badass. Of course, the blood, gore, and obscene amount of violence throughout the series was bound to turn some heads, even in the series' first installments. As such, a scene in this first game was cut for European and Japanese audiences. Yes, the Japanese too, as it was deemed far too horrific. It is definitely a pretty brutal scene, with Kratos providing the gods with a human sacrifice, where the player kicks the cage sacrifice into the fire, burning them alive. Intentionally. The censored version of this sequence replaces the human sacrifice with an undead one, which is certainly much better, right? Number 15. Is there strong language or not? The original games were, of course, rated M, and this was no different when they were compiled into the various collections. However, throughout the excessive gore, nudity, and overall nasty tone of the narrative, the ESRB rating also throws in accounts of strong language. But, interestingly, throughout the entire main trilogy, there are no F-bombs or swears at all to be found. The only instance of strong language is in the behind-the-scenes footage provided in the game's extras. Perhaps due to Kratos' demeanor, they thought they must condone swearing, but as it turns out, swears are not Kratos' style. And there we have it. 15 years of the franchise and 15 things you probably still didn't know about it. Given the success of the 2018 installment, we're certainly looking forward to more of Kratos' bloody shenanigans in the years to come, be that as another game, a comic, novel, or film. We can't wait. For more great gaming videos and lists like this, be sure to subscribe to our channel and enable notifications so you never miss a thing. We selected this video for you to watch next.